Hi, this is Rick Ferguson, classical piano teacher, Chicago Academy for the Arts, with my student Adam, part 3 of Adam Learns Chopin. So we are studying the F major Ballade by Frédéric Chopin, and we are now beginning to address the fireworks that happen at the end of the piece. But Adam, musically, one thing that we've been discussing is actually how the ideas are synthesized at the end. And all of the ideas musically that we've been working with up until now, they sort of then all come together and find a way to intersect at the end, right? And so we're trying to figure this out, both in terms of what is happening musically, how we address that technically, but then also in terms of your own personal narrative. You're giving that a great deal of thought. So maybe let's start big picture first. How would you say that your ideas about your own personal narrative, or what you feel is being expressed as this piece evolved, how has that changed over the last few weeks? What do you think?
Well, the story sort of continues to progress as the piece goes on, and as we get more of fireworks, as you call it, by the end of the piece, that sort of signifies the tragedy in the ending and how it's all just coming to a sort of cataclysm in a way.
Yes. Oh boy, you said the magic word, tragedy. And I'll tell you why I think tragedy is a really important term when dealing with not just this ballade, but the other 3 ballades as well. But in a way, maybe this one most of all, in a way, because this is coming out of the specifically the 19th century and late 18th century ballad storytelling tradition, as we've talked about previously. Well, those stories never, ever, ever have a happy ending. It's always about tragedy, right? So there is some type of reckoning for the main character that happens at the end of your typical ballad story, right? And so that's very true. Chopin is really staying very true to the nature of the ballad storytelling tradition, but he's incredibly clever at how he builds tension and how he sort of pretends to resolve that tension at the end, but then it really doesn't resolve because it's very sad. You know, it has that tragic flavor at the end. Okay, so you're really thinking about the connection between what Chopin is doing musically and then the storytelling element that he's trying to draw in to his music. Now, let's think about how we've been approaching some of this last bit. We have, in Chopin's writing at the end of this ballade, we have Chopin reintroducing this presto idea that we've already had a couple of times. And Adam, you've talked about that idea as symbolizing chaos, essentially, right? Okay, play us just a couple of measures of chaos. And do it as you would normally play it. So let's sort of hear the chaos motive here. Crazy music, right? But thinking of it in terms of the idea of creating impetus and intensity in terms of storytelling, it's wildly effective, right? Okay, now, how does this final appearance of this chaotic theme differ from the first couple of appearances of the same thematic material?
Well, the most prominent thing is that it's in a different key.
Now, how does that shift of key, how does that affect your experience of what you think is going on in the overall narrative?
It almost seems more chaotic in a way. And then when it goes back into the original key, you really get a sense of like that confirmation as in, yes, this is chaos.
Oh, that's interesting. That's it. So do you feel when he is shifting the key here, because we've got more of like an A minor-y kind of thing going on this time, you're really feeling that it's the same material, but the mere fact that it's shifted into a different key is heightening the tension in the, okay, all right, very good, very good. Now, let's talk about how we've started to go about practicing this from a technical standpoint. One of the things that we're doing is in very intense music, as a practice, we're experimenting with the idea of trying to create a little bit more of a sense of physical relaxation, a little bit more of a sense of lack of resistance in the fingers by slightly softening the dynamic level at which we're playing, figuring out what sounds we want to be focusing on, and specifically here, it's maintaining the sense of connection with the key bottom, right? We talk about that a lot. But then also the importance of what the left-hand thumb is playing in all of these, whether it be the octaves, right, or within the 16th note material, right, because it's creating like a sort of a counter-melodic idea, right? So let's do that. So take the tempo down and soften your sound. Take the pedal out of the equation. Yes, that's right. We're taking the pedal out of the equation for a moment. And then you just focus on your connectivity to the key bottom, but then also awareness of what your left thumb is doing. Let's do a little bit of that. And we're trying to move laterally across the surface of the keys to try to create a little bit more of an efficient motion. Harmonic note here, yes. Then it returns back, right? But now it's going higher, right? Okay, so that's one thing we've been doing. Now, within that particular practice, we've also been altering the rhythm slightly in the right hand, right? And so we're seeing if we can still practice slowly, but introducing a little bit more motion into that slow practice. So let's hear what happens when we begin to try to dot that rhythm in the right hand. Keeping it sort of like this. Yes, you just really focus on what the thumb's doing. Now, of course, we're not going to do a dotted rhythm without doing the counterpart of the dotted rhythm, which is reverse dotted rhythm. So let's do it in reverse dotted rhythm, but see if you can still maintain your awareness of what's going on with that left thumb, but we're also, especially when we're working in reverse dotted rhythm, right, with the 16th note figures between the two hands, it's helping to align the two hands so that they're working together better as a team, right? Okay, so let's try that. Good luck. I'm sort of heading us slightly in that direction right now in terms of how we're practicing that. Like, what does that do for us, other than entertain me? What do you think?
Well, I guess it opens up sort of flexibility in the hands and also dexterity in getting around the piano keys. And it also helps with hearing the melodic lines in different ways.
Yes.
So like, you have
Yes, it's outlining that diminished seventh chord, right? Which, of course, as we all know, any diminished seventh chord is the chord of chaos, right? And so there, you're really sort of being drawn to the dark side. And he's sort of heightening the tension before the fake resolution that really isn't a resolution that we have at the end, right? So that's very good. You're really doing that very well. All right, now, let's back up a little bit to the section that you wanted to start with today, that return to the initial theme.
Sure.
And I have a question for you, Adam. How have your thoughts about this tune and its role in the story? And if you remember from previous episodes, that the main tune is that right? It's that beautiful, we talked about it in terms of a gondola song, right? How has your sense of that tune changed?
Well, among all the chaos, it seems as though it's almost a moment of solace. Among like all the chaos is happening in the rest of the piece.
So do you think that it would be accurate, please correct me if I'm wrong, would it be accurate to say that theme, because the chaos tends to build and build gradually throughout the piece, right? But then we always have the reintroduction of that original theme, right? Is it your feeling that Chopin is using that initial theme to provide sort of counterbalance between that and sort of this ever-looming chaos that's happening in the story, right? And then, of course, since this is, well, for all intents and purposes, except for the very, very end, this is the last appearance, really full appearance of this theme, right? Right? Okay, so at this point, we will have had a good bit of chaos to start to stir up, but we have not yet reached the high point of the piece. So let's maybe start there, and let's sort of hear how that tune is feeling now. Yes, lots of attention to that top note. Good. Your finger legato is getting better. Part of a journey, constantly moving through different keys. Think to yourself, how does my sense of this tune change now as it continues to go through different keys? Yes, 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 yes. Now, to hear the end, you have to tune in next time. Thank you, Adam, and thank you for watching.